Welcome back. Today we are going to put our little sweater that we've been working on back onto the needles. Last time where we left off, we separated out the sleeves and put the fronts and the back of the sweater on holders, and now we've finished the sleeves and bound them off, and so we're ready now to get going on the body again. Now when we separated everything out, we were working in this direction, since here's our cast on edge, and we worked across this front, the sleeve, the back, the other sleeve, the other front. So we put these on a holder, worked across the sleeve, joined in a new ball of yarn, worked across the back, put it on a holder, worked across the sleeve, and then did not finish the last section. So what we need to do then, in order to join in where we left off on the body, is to pick up this stitch at the underarm here first. So I have it on this scrap piece of yarn, and that means I need to get it onto my needles first. So I'm going to pick up each stitch and put it onto my needle one by one. Okay, and then I can pull out my scrap yarn and pull my needle tip so that this stitch is at the business end of my needle here. Okay, now I'll bring over my yarn, and I'm going to leave a nice long tail, 6 to 8 inches. Pull some of the yarn in here because that's a little tight. There we are. Okay. And I am just going to stick the needle into the stitch, loop my yarn over the needle, and pull it through. I don't do anything special. I don't tie any knots or anything. I just pull a loop through, and that's good enough for joining in. And then just work across your front, and when you get to the end where you're doing the seed stitch button band, then you'll switch over to seed stitch and work that in pattern. I'm lazy and I didn't put that on mine, so for demonstration purposes, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to knit across. Okay, now I'm going to turn around and I'm going to work across to the underarm. Okay, once I'm at the underarm, I'm ready now to join the back stitches onto this section. Here are the back stitches on a holder, and I need to get these stitches onto my needle before I can work with them. And the key here is to make sure that all of these stitches end up on this needle, and this stitch here needs to be at the end of the tip so that I can knit them. And I'm going to pull that needle out so that those stitches don't fall off while I'm working with these. And I'm just going to again slip each stitch off of the holder onto the needle, stitch by stitch. If you had used a double pointed needle or another circular needle as your stitch holder, you would be able to just knit off of that, and you can avoid this extra step of transferring the stitches back onto the needle. But if you didn't have any of the extra needles laying around, or you just prefer to use the stitch holders, then it's necessary to get up on there. The stitches are a little tight on my big needle here. Okay. Now in the pattern we cast on 2 extra stitches at either end of the sleeve, so we need to cast on some stitches at the underarm, and we're going to cast on 3 stitches. You could do that E-wrap cast on where you would put the loop on your thumb and then pop it onto the needle 3 times. Or you could do a cable or a knitted on cast on, which involves needing to turn around, find a needle here, knitting into the first stitch, and then putting, not removing this stitch, but putting it, the new stitch back onto the left needle. That's 1, 2, 3, okay, and then turning back around again. And all you're going to do, push these stitches back up to the needle. All you're going to do is bring your yarn forward because we're purling, and continue working across. Okay, so we work across the back stitches. And I didn't work the full-size version of the sweater so that I can get across here sooner. Okay, and now we're going to join to the other sleeve, or the other front rather. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, transfer my stitches off of the stitch holder onto my needle tip, making sure that the needle tip is going to end up at on the underarm. The tip of the needle will end up at the underarm. Okay, and pull that through, and cast on 3 stitches. So I'm going to cast on the same way with my knitted on, cast on, pull that up, put it back onto the needle. That's 1, 2, 3. Okay, turn around. Myself some more yarn here. Okay, turn around and pull your needle so that you're got the stitches all ready. Bring the yarn forward and continue working across to the end of the row. And once you're at the end of the row, you will have joined your sweater, all the separate pieces back onto one needle again, and you'll be ready to finish working down the body of the sweater. And this is the home stretch. On a sweater as small as the one that we're working on, you probably only have maybe 2 or 3 days worth of knitting. Depending on your schedule, you might even be less than that. Okay, so let me pull the needle so you can see. where we are with our little sweater. Now, look at that. It's starting to look like a sweater, finally, and at the end of the pattern, nearly the end. Okay, so we're going to work on the body, and then next time we'll talk about sewing the underarm and sleeve seams. So I'll see you then.